Hey everyone, Jake here from CVP. Today I'm incredibly excited to show you this, the first true collaborative camera between Nikon and Red, the ZR. And this is just the start of the Z Cinema series. It shares a lot with some existing Nikon cameras, but also has some new features and specs that we haven't seen before in a camera like this. And it's coming in at a pretty aggressive price of just £2,199. But is it any good? And should you consider switching to it? Let's take a look. This is the first camera under the new Z Cinema umbrella, which Nikon are also classing the Z mount Red cameras under as well. The ZR is a great first step, but I am incredibly excited to see what else Nikon and Red have up their sleeves. The ZR is based around the Z6 III, but of course it has a few refinements to make it more focused for motion acquisition and some new features that Red have had a hand in, and that's why it's got both Red's and Nikon's branding on the camera. We only had access to this camera for a single day, so we've tried to be efficient with what we've shot, so we can show you as much about this new camera as possible. I'm sure I will mention some stuff that I would love to show or cover with B-roll that we may not have captured, so sorry for that. The camera we've shot everything for this video with was running pre-release firmware, so some minor details could potentially change. We managed to take the camera out very briefly to Gunnersbury Park after shooting all of our testing and B-roll to capture some very general creative stuff and conduct some more tests. So let's take a look at the image this camera can capture. We took a large array of Nikon lenses with us, and the new Red V-Raptor XC as well, which we released a video about yesterday. The ZR is an absolute pleasure to use. The new 4-inch bright rear screen, updated video shooting menu, customizable user presets and quick monitoring tools combined with its compact form factor and feature set make it really great to use. I can't wait to get this camera back in for a more regular shoot. And the image it can capture is actually fantastic. This is partly because of one of the biggest new additions to the ZR, the ability to record in the new R3D NE internally compressed RAW format. This is a 12-bit RAW codec, not 16-bit linear like the R3D found in the regular Red cameras, but the images we've managed to capture still look excellent. We shot pretty much all of our creative footage using this new format and then processed it through a beta version of Red Cine X, outputting it using Red's IPP2 color pipeline in Rec 709 BT1886. Which is what we use when we shoot with our Komodo X and want to turn around images fast. Doing this results in images that look typically red, which is what we wanted to see with this camera. They look detailed and the colours look lovely. Let us know what you think of the image in the comments. Right, let's start taking a deeper look at the camera technically. Starting with the 24.6 megapixel or 6K sensor that's housed inside. It's a partially stacked full frame sensor with a resolution of 6048 by 4024 and a size of 35.9 by 23.9mm, giving it a pixel pitch of roughly 5.94 microns. Nikon has actually used this sensor before in the Z6 III, and Panasonic used it recently in the S1 II. 24 megapixels is a really nice resolution for a hybrid camera for both video and photo. It's a nice balance of resolution and file sizes. In the ZR, Red and Nikon have rated it to capture 15 plus stops of dynamic range when capturing in Red's Log 3G10 Gamma, which we'll talk about a bit more later in the video. Right, let's take a look at how this camera performs, starting with our Latitude tests. For these tests, we grabbed a few cameras we think the ZR could be compared to that we had available. So in this test, we have the Nikon Z6 III, Sony a7S III and FX2, Panasonic S1 II, and Blackmagic Pixis 6K. I would have rather have used an FX3 over the a7S III, but they are incredibly similar, and unfortunately we didn't have an FX3 available. For these tests, we used our 50mm Nissi Athena and then PL adapters from Nissi across all of the cameras. Here's a breakdown of our methodology for these tests and the different formats we shot across the different cameras. We shot RAW on all of these cameras apart from the FX2 and a7S III, where we recorded XAVC at the highest data rate possible. This means the RAW clips won't have any noise reduction applied in both tests. Right, let's take a look at the results. I'm going to let them play out, so skip to this time if you'd rather just skip ahead. We will be uploading these tests in full onto our Vimeo as soon as possible, so go follow us there for when we publish that. Let's talk about the camera's sensor readout speed. For these controlled tests, we are using our own in-house measuring tool and software so we can give you some numbers and compare them to other cameras we've measured before. Thanks to the partially stacked sensor in the camera's full frame mode, we get a readout time of roughly 9.5 milliseconds, which is really good for a 6K camera. Here's a table with the rest of our results. These are some impressive figures. It performs pretty much the same as the Z6 III, which isn't surprising given that they share the same sensor. For the price, these are really good results. The sensor inside the ZR has a dual native ISO which changes between the different gamma profiles. In both log profiles and RAW it is 800 and 6400, and then in the SDR profiles it is 100 and 800. When in log 3G10 you can switch between the two in the first layer menu and then go between the different ISOs, including down to 200 in the low mode, which is good to have. You can then go up to 3200 in the low mode and then down to 1600 in the high mode. So you can choose which base you want to be on depending on the shooting scenario you are in and what you want to try and protect out of your highlights or shadows. Looking at the two different base ISOs in our Latitude setup at the same exposure, we can see that the 6400 base ISO clip is a touch noisier than the 800 base clip. With the non-RAW formats, you can dial in the noise reduction as well, but we didn't get a chance to fully test this. The colour science inside of the ZR is arguably one of its most interesting features, mainly because you can now shoot using RED's compressed RAW and colour science. The new R3D-NE codec uses RED's log3G10 gamma and their RED wide gamut colour space, and the colour science in the camera has been tuned by RED. The camera's colour profiles for video can be broken down into SDR and log. When you select your codec, you have to hit right on the joystick, which will allow you to choose between the SDR and the logs. Currently, you cannot shoot log3G10 RED wide gamut in any of the RAW or non-RAW formats, just in R3D. If you want to shoot log in the non-RAW formats or the other RAW formats, you have to use N-Log. I would really like to see the ability to record log3G10 in ProRes and H.265. It would be great to be able to capture in RED's gamma and colour space in these. And what would be even better is being able to use that and then RED scientific LUTs, which are really good and give you the ability to control the contrast and highlight roll-off with the different LUTs in camera. Being able to record with that look burnt into non-RAW clips would be even better. Talking about LUTs, you can load a maximum of 10 into the camera, though currently they only work when you are shooting in R3D. You can use these to monitor your image, but not burn them into your footage, which I would like to see added to this camera, alongside being able to use them with N-Log as well. During our time with the camera, we ingested a few of RED's technical LUTs and used them while shooting R3D-NE. RED has a bunch of these that allow you to control the highlight roll-off and output tone map contrast. Our go-to when shooting RED, which is a lot, is soft or very soft highlight roll-off and then medium contrast, but there are a bunch of combinations to choose from. If you want to download these, I've put links to them down in the description below, and also links to RED's creative LUTs as well. Nikon also has a range of LUTs co-created with RED for N-Log. This includes a range of creative LUTs, but also a scientific N-Log to Rec 709 BT1886. When we use the RED technical IPP2 LUTs in camera, the image on the back of the monitor looks really good, and when applying the same processing through CineX, the images we capture with the ZR look like they were just shot on a RED camera, which is great. The camera also has the ability to enable a view assist, which is very handy in the other log modes when you don't want to just be staring at a log image. When in SDR, you set the picture control here in the menu. These will look like standard stills profiles, not video specific ones. With the ZR, Nikon has added the Red Cine Bias colour profile, which you can use in non-RAW formats. This is a 709-ish profile that has been tuned by RED to be a slightly more cine-orientated deliverable straight out of the camera. Currently, it looks weirdly pink and desaturated compared to R3D IPP2 and Nikon N-Log with a 709 LUT or transform applied to it. I think this needs tweaking, and this is something that I've fed back to Nikon and RED. I would love to just see a profile based around the technical LUTs we mentioned earlier, as these look fantastic. Nikon also told us that there are going to be a range of RED-developed picture profiles that you'll be able to download via their imaging cloud. I think this camera really needs some more video-specific nice 709 profiles, like Canon's YDR or Sony's S-Cinetone. Hopefully this is something Nikon can add in firmware. When it comes to setting custom white balance, this is often a really overlooked feature of mirrorless cameras. On the ZR, you can white balance using a picture or using a much better function that allows you to use a tiny little square to precisely capture a custom white balance. This is great to use with something like the Passport Color Checker. It's a really nice system and will be appreciated by plenty of people who shoot in more controlled environments. I wanted to see if there was a difference between capturing log3G10 red wide gamut in camera versus just normal N-Log. So we shot these two different shots, one in NRAW and one in R3D at the same resolution with the same camera settings and lenses and everything. I then processed them both through Red CineX, keeping them in log, but then exporting them out as ProRes. I then brought them into Resolve and color space transformed them into the different log curves and applied the same LUT. That way we can see if there's any differences between them. I think there's a clear colour difference here. I think R3D looks much better. We also captured the exact same shot with the Raptor XE, and the ZR does match it really well, but the Raptor definitely looks better tonally. We also captured a test with the XE and the ZR outside, and again we can see just how close the colour is between them. Nikon and Red have done a great job with the ZR's colour in R3D. I just think it needs the ability to record non-RAW formats in better Rec 709-ish profiles, the ability to use Red's colour and gamma in the non-RAW formats, as well as being able to burn in LUTs. Up next, let's check out how this camera handles infrared light pollution. For these tests, we grabbed a range of different black fabrics, as different types will behave differently to each other, and then blasted an ARRI blonde at them. We then went through the range of our Polar Pro variable ND, adjusting aperture on our lens to keep exposure consistent. This is an unnamed camera with its OLPF removed, as an extreme example of what IR pollution can do to your image. Starting off looking at the camera with no ND, which we white balance for, we can see the camera looks good here. Going to 2 stops, we can see there is a slight warm shift, but I think that's the ND, but the IR is handled well. Going through the rest of the range, it looks good with no purple shifts. We also didn't run into any issues when shooting outside in bright sunlight, which is really good to see. The ZR is absolutely crammed with different recording formats and codecs to choose from. I think the best way to break this down is between RAW and non-RAW. When it comes to RAW, you have 3 flavours to choose from, which you can shoot all internally. The new Red R3D NE, Nikon's NRAW, and ProRes RAW. It's crazy that you have 3 RAW options to choose from inside this camera, and I think they all have different reasons to choose them. All of them are 12-bit, but of course the one that everyone will be interested in shooting in is R3D. The regular R3D we've been using in Red cameras for years now is one of the best compressed RAW codecs on the market. Unsurprisingly, this version of R3D wasn't supported yet in Resolve or Premiere when we created this video, but it will be very soon. Fortunately, we got an early beta build of Red's CineX program to process the footage through. But normally, support for R3D is excellent in NLEs. You have loads of parameters to adjust and excellent image flexibility, like you do in Red CineX. This new version of R3D is optimized for this new camera, which is why we haven't seen it in any camera previously. In CineX, it behaves pretty much identically to the regular R3D. You can control everything you expect from a RAW codec and process it through Red's IPP2 color pipeline, which we love using. I think a lot of people grabbing this camera will be wanting to use this format, and it's fantastic to finally see a Nikon camera implement this. You also have Nikon's NRAW, which is available in both high and normal quality, which are effectively 2 different compression amounts. R3D is only available in 1 flavour currently, and actually has the same data rates as the high quality NRAW. So in 6K25, NRAW normal has a data rate of 810 megabits per second, and NRAW high and R3D HE has a data rate of roughly 1590 megabits per second. Nikon won't tell us how they are compressing or what ratio of compression they are using for R3D, but at least we have these data rates to go off. This means we can easily get some good runtime estimations, and we'll take a look at how it performs in regards to compression artifacting in a bit. With ProRes RAW still not being supported in Resolve, it's really hard to recommend shooting this unless you are mainly editing and colouring in Final Cut, in which case it could be a good option. However, for most people wanting to colour their footage in Resolve or Premiere, I would suggest using R3D or NRAW. You'll be able to get both of these into Resolve no problem, and you've got really excellent RAW controls when you get there. When you record RAW, the camera automatically records 1080p proxies to the CF Express, which could come in handy in post. In regards to compressed recording options, you have ProRes 422HQ, H.265, which is 420 10-bit, and H.264, which is 420 8-bit. It's a shame that the only 422 10-bit option you have is the ProRes 422HQ, as that's got such a larger data rate compared to the H.265 420 10-bit option. It'd be great for Nikon to add maybe ProRes 422LT or a 422 10-bit H.265 option, as there will be plenty of people wanting to shoot with smaller data rates that still want to record 422 10-bit, which has become pretty standard now. The camera also has no 17:9 options, just 16:9 across all the different recording formats. You can choose from the typical base frame rates you expect, so 24, 25, 30, 50 and 60 frames per second. In the non-RAW formats, the 4K is downsampling up to 60 frames per second. Above that, the camera crops in by 1.5 times, and it isn't oversampling. So let's take a look at how all these different formats perform. The ZR features an OLPF, so this should help reduce aliasing and moire. On this shot, we can see that even on Gemma's jacket, we've got no issue with moire. However, we did shoot tests using our focus chart,
which is a much more stressful test for this. When shooting in R3D and NRAW, you can shoot in 6K full frame, 4K full frame, and 4K Super 35. This is weird to see with Red, as normally when you reduce resolution when shooting R3D, you are cropping in on the resolution of the sensor. Nikon won't tell us how they are achieving this, but let's have a look at our resolution tests. Starting with our 6K R3D example, we can see a little bit of aliasing if we zoom all the way in. If we compare this to the 4K R3D clip, we can see color aliasing and a drop in overall resolving power. Looking at the 4K Super 35, we can see a return to the 6K performance. It's good that you have the option to shoot R3D full frame in 4K, but if you want the best image quality possible, stick to the 6K full frame and the 4K Super 35 modes. If we take a look at our outside compression tests, which are a bit more real world and nowhere near as stressful for cameras as our chart is, we can still see a drop in detail, but it's much more usable than our chart example. Looking at our 6K shot, we can see that the image looks nice with minimal compression artifacts, especially given its data rate. In NRAW, it's a similar story as we've just mentioned. However, looking at the ProRes 42HQ footage, I actually think the 4K full frame stuff looks better here than in RAW. This could be a bug with the camera or with the DeBear in Red Cine X and Resolve, but it's good that you've got an option in camera to shoot good quality 4K full frame non-RAW. The H.265 performs quite similarly to the ProRes, though in the 1080p H.265 you do have a lot more aliasing. If you can manage the data rates of the 6K formats, they will give you the best looking images and the most flexibility in post. But it is good you've got the option to shoot 4K if you'd like, especially ProRes HQ, which looks really good. When it comes to high frame rates, you have a mix of different options available. You can record 6K up to 60 frames per second in RAW, or 4K 60 with no crop in RAW. You can also capture 4K 120 in RAW, but with a 1.5 times crop, and in Full HD non-RAW, you can max the camera out at 240 frames per second. You can also shoot full frame 4K 60 in non-RAW, and in this mode, the camera is downsampling. The Full HD 240 does have a little crop compared to the full 6K frame, but not too much. Red have always done high frame rate footage really well, and the ZR follows suit. All of our examples look really good. The footage is clean and detailed. Even the Full HD footage looks great. We shot a lot of R3D 6K 60 on location, and it does look very nice. One weird thing with this camera is that none of the slow-mo conforms in camera. So if you shoot 120 frames per second, you'll need to interpret that clip to whatever your base frame rate is, like 24, in post, to get the desired slow motion effect. A lot of other video cameras when shooting slow motion will conform their slow-mo to the base frame rate you have the camera set to. It's not a massive issue, but something worth knowing about and remembering to do in post when you need to. This is how you do it in Premiere, and this is how you do it in Resolve. The ZR features the same 5-axis sensor shift image stabilisation present in the Z6 III, which is good to have in a camera this small. You have a normal mode and a sport mode, sport being designed for panning shots and normal being the recommended mode for most other situations. It also has digital stabilisation in the non-RAW modes. Let's have a look at how it all performs. For these tests we captured a few different shots, some static, some panning, and some walking in a few different modes. Starting with the static shots, we can see that the sensor vibration reduction doing a good job at creating a stable shot. Enabling electronic stabilisation can introduce some jittiness to it, so I think sticking to sensor stabilisation only gives good results. And then you can just stabilise it in post if you want to add some more to it. When looking at the panning shots, we can again see that they look best in the sport and normal mode. And then when walking again, I think just regular vibration reduction gives the most pleasing results. Overall, I think the stabilisation this camera offers is pretty good. If you want to use it on other sport equipment, you easily can. One thing worth noting is that you can't lock down the sensor like some of Nikon's stills cameras. The ZR has a few different exposure tools built in. You have a zebra function, waveform, and histogram. What you use is obviously personal preference, but they are all useful in certain situations. You can change the size of the waveform and histogram, and the position as well, but this is only when it's set to its smallest size. The zebra function is my preferred exposure tool currently in this camera. You have settings for both mid-tone and highlights, which are helpful for different shooting scenarios. For some reason, Nikon uses 8-bit values of their zebras instead of IRE. So here are the numbers I would set these to for properly exposing. If you want to use zebras to protect your highlights, I would suggest using 245 with plus or minus 5. And if you'd rather expose using mid-grey in more controlled shoots, this will change depending on the log curve. In Red's log 3G10, mid-grey IRE should be set to 33 or roughly 85 for the zebra tool. And in Z-log, it should be set to 35, which is roughly 90 on the zebra tool.
I really wish this tool was IRE instead, or even better, the camera had mid-grey zebra presets. When you use a LUT in R3D, this will affect your exposure tools, so be careful when exposing with LUTs on. Given how excellent Red's exposure tools are in their cameras, I really hope to see some better ones in this one. False colour traffic lights or geoscopes would have been amazing to see in this camera. You'll definitely be able to shoot with the tools it currently has, but I think Nikon do need to refine this a little bit and add some more to it in future with firmware. If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest kit, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to buy anything you see in this video or want to get your hands on the ZR or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. The ZR is the first camera to feature internal 32-bit flow audio recording, which I think is a pretty big deal. I can't believe that we are only just getting this now, and honestly, it's great to see. 32-bit flow is fantastic for smaller crude work as it gives you much better flexibility to adjust the gain of your audio in post compared to other audio recording formats. This is possible to capture across all the different recording formats, but the OZO directionality modes are limited to just the non-RAW formats. You can toggle that on and off and then also change the direction of the mic pickup. The camera has a 3.5mm mic input on the side, which has the same improved preamps as the Z6 III had. It has line level support, which will be helpful for external recording. You can also use the multi-shoe to use digital audio interfaces, like the new ME-D10 shotgun microphone that they are releasing at the same time as the ZR, and Tascam will be making a XLR unit, which could be a good option if you want direct XLR connection with this camera. The new mic also has a range of pickup patterns and modes which you can control on the mic itself. We did some very brief testing out on location with the new mic and the scratch mics using the new modes. I'm going to let a few examples play out, skip to this time code if you want to continue on with the video.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
It's great to finally see a camera with 32-bit float built into it, and in practice it works really well, and the quality of the scratch mic and the new shotgun mic seem really good. Let us know if you think this is a big addition and what you think of 32-bit float audio down below in the comments. One of Nikon's biggest strengths in the current market of cameras is their Z mount. This is because of its incredibly short flange depth of 16mm, which means that you can adapt a huge range of lenses onto it. This includes all the standard ones you often see like PL and EF, but arguably the most interesting one is Sony's E-mount lenses. This is a massive plus for this camera and makes it incredibly flexible, but it also opens this camera up to everyone who's invested into Sony's E-mount glass but wants to give the ZR a try because of all of the great features we've detailed in this video without having to sell all of your E-mount lenses that you've invested into. There are a few brands of Z to E-mount adapters, but from our testing, the Megadap ETZ21 works the best. This adapter allows you to use Sony E-mount lenses pretty much exactly as they would behave on an E-mount system. So you get metadata, full autofocus and manual focus, aperture control and lens customization. Nikon have also added focus breathing correction into the ZR, which is compatible with all of Nikon's Z-mount lenses, which is pretty cool. This behaves similarly to other implementations of this, so it crops in on your image slightly to reduce the amount of breathing it needs for a given lens. If you are wanting to adapt to something like PL or EF, there are plenty of Z-mount adapters out there now that allow you to use drop-in filters. Nikon obviously has loads of native lenses available for Z-mount as well now, and some of them are really interesting. You have a good mix of affordable and also high-end lenses to choose from. You can adjust how these behave in the menu as well. This includes changing the direction of the focus, which is going to be really good for people new to the Nikon system, and changing what the control rings and buttons do. The autofocus system inside the ZR is essentially the exact same as the one found in the Z6 III. The Nikon autofocus system has come a long way over the years, and in the menu now you have a bunch of control and modes. It has 9 different subject detection modes including people, cars and animals. You can control the way the autofocus behaves by adjusting the speed and tracking sensitivity. For our autofocus testing, we are using it at its fastest setting and 5 sensitivity. However, for our creative testing, we kept the speed at 0 to try and make the focus look a bit more natural. Another thing is you need to make sure that the mode is set to AFF, which is the one that Nikon have designed for video. We also had the area set to Auto Area AF, which uses the whole frame for tracking. Anyway, let's have a look at how it performs. For our testing, we wanted to use both a Z mount lens and an adapted E mount lens, so I think it's a key part of this camera. However, one thing to note is that the firmware on the adapter may not behave with the ZR quite yet, as the camera is so new. So performance could change once the camera comes out and Megadap update the firmware. With the Nikon 24-70mm f2.8 Mark I, we shot with the speed set to the fastest, where it tracks SAM really well, and then also the slowest, which is so slow, I really can't recommend using it like this for tracking shots. So we then set it back to 0, and the focus pull looks a bit more human-like here. It's still tracking SAM well, just a bit slower. Looking at the 28-70mm f2G master with the AF speed set to 5, we can see this weird pulsing. Turning the speed down to -4 helped with this pulsing, but we can see it's certainly not quite as reliable as using the Nikon native lens. But like I said, this could be down to firmware, and we'll be doing a video about this in the future, so make sure to subscribe to not miss that. You can also enable subject tracking for objects. This will be really helpful when wanting to record different points or objects that aren't a defined subject. The autofocus seems very good from the testing and creative shots we've managed to capture. Let us know if you want us to compare it to anything or go into more details about it down in the comments below. I think for most video shooters, this system would be great. There are loads of videos breaking down Nikon's autofocus system in the Z6 III, which this shares a lot with, so if you want to learn more about it, I'd check those videos out. One feature I really like on this camera is its punch-in tool. When using non-servo lenses, the zoom rocket on the front can be used to punch in. This means you can check sharps really easily, and when you enable face tracking in manual focus, you can punch into what is being tracked, which is really nice for manual focus users like us. Unfortunately, while recording RAW, you cannot punch in mid-shot, which is a bit of a shame and something I would love for Nikon to change with firmware. The ZR is unlike any Nikon or Red camera we've ever seen. It's still definitely inspired by mirrorless cameras, but it's certainly stripped back compared to a mirrorless camera. It's kind of hard to really say what it compares to. It's kind of like an FX3 or Canon C50, but I think it is a little bit more stripped back compared to those. One design change with the ZR is that it doesn't have any grip on the right hand side. Nikon have been pitching this camera to us as not needing accessories, but if you're wanting to use it handheld, you might need to add some kind of side grip to it, otherwise it really hasn't got much grip for you to grab onto. I understand this might be to help differentiate it from a normal looking mirrorless camera, but they also could have given them more space to put the media in a more accessible position than it is. This does make it smaller and lighter though for when you're running it on a gimbal or other support equipment, but I don't think a little grip would have affected that too much. Nikon have collaborated with SmallRig to create some accessories for the ZR, and two of them can give you a little bit more grip on the camera if you want. One is a simple grip and the other is a footer cage that also has a grip on it. SmallRig will also offer a top handle that is designed for the camera with the Tascam XLR unit for it attached. Nikon also makes their MCN10 USB-C remote grip, which could be an interesting pairing with this camera as it adds a bunch of control but does need to be connected via USB-C, which is on the other side of the camera that you'll be using the grip on. So it could make it a bit cumbersome to use for certain configurations, but great for others if it's rigged well. It's a really cool side handle and something I can definitely see being used with this camera. Let's walk around the camera physically, starting at the top. Here you have the power on button on the top left, a tally lamp and a witness mark. You then have a mix of different built-in microphones set around the electronic function shoe and then an array of buttons on the right. There is a photo video switch here, which switches the menu between being focused around either photo or video, which we'll look a bit more in depthly at in a bit. You then have the shutter record button, which has a little zoom rock on it as well, which will allow you to control servo zoom lenses like their 28-135mm. There are then three customizable buttons, which you can rebind in the menu. On the bottom, you have a single 1/4 inch thread. As always, I would have loved to have seen two threads here, but this will be solved with rigging. On the left, you have the camera's inputs and outputs. Here you have a USB-C, which can be used for power and connectivity. You then have a micro HDMI, which I would have loved to have been a full-size one. You can output a clean feed or one with the menu structure overlaid, like you see on the camera, and it can output both 1080p and 4K, though it is limited to 1080p when you shoot RAW. Next, you have 3.5mm jacks for both headphone monitoring and mic input. There is nothing on the right-hand side of the camera, On the front, there is the dial just under the shutter button position, a record button on the front left, which is good, and of course the lens mount. The back is actually surprisingly minimal. You have a joystick for control, the menu button, which you can quick press for the first layer of the menu, and then hold to get into the deeper Nikon menu system. You then have a playback button, and then another dial for controlling your exposure. The ZR doesn't have any active fan cooling at all, but Nikon have stated that it should handle heat well. We didn't have time to test this, but I'm sure someone will test this very soon. From the limited time that we had shooting with the camera, we had no issues at all. The camera is also drip and dust resistant, which we almost tested when out filming, but fortunately the weather was lovely in the end. The built-in monitor on the ZR is pretty rare to find on a camera of this size and spec. With the fantastic range of internal recording options of this camera, Nikon wanted to include a monitor so fantastic that you didn't need to add an external one to get a good monitoring experience. This monitor is a massive 4-inch panel with a resolution of 3070K, which I think if it's 16x10 works out to be around 2216 by 1385. It covers the full DCI P3 color space and has a peak brightness of 1000 nits. These are some seriously good specifications for a camera of this size and price. It's your typical flippy screen design, and the hinge does feel decently robust. If you have any cables plugged in, you will have limited clearance for rotating the monitor though. When using the camera outside, this monitor really was great. The size and brightness made using it in brighter conditions really easy. It's seriously impressive for such a compact camera to have such a good monitor on the back. Well done Nikon, this is excellent. The menu system on the ZR is very similar to the Z6 III. If you're in the photo mode, it's pretty much exactly the same. When you go into the video mode though, there's a couple of new bits here which I think do make it better for shooting video. First off, the home screen is different, and you have two quick access menus, one in the top left and one in the bottom right. The top left one is the first layer menu, which you can also access by tapping the menu button. This brings up this range of 12 functions, which you can customize in the menu to whatever you please. The second menu in the bottom right is more focused around monitoring functions. This isn't customizable, but you do have a really good range of tools accessible here. There are toggles for peaking, grids, virtual horizon, zebras, view assist, and record surround. You can also control the brightness of the monitor here as well. Having all of these here makes it really quick to access them, and the monitor brightness slider is super handy when shooting outside. Back on the home screen, you then have very typical controls, but also this little M tab. This gives you 4 different custom user presets. By default, they are named as Cinematic, Slow, and then User 3 and User 4. You can rename these in the menu though. When you save these presets, they remember pretty much the camera's entire settings when you hit save. This means that you can set up 4 different modes for the different recording formats and frame rates that you use most often, and then quickly switch between them while shooting instead of having to delve into the menus to switch. Having these 2 quick access menus and the user presets means that when out shooting, you really don't have to delve into the deeper menu too much, which I think is a good thing. As the camera is built from the Z6 III, the deeper menu system is pretty much the same as that. You have the video tab for a range of settings, and then more video functions in the pencil tab at the bottom. Video function wise, the camera's not bad, but I really hope in future cameras Nikon draws inspiration from Red's exposure and monitoring tools. Oh yeah, you can also rotate the UI of the monitor as you go between vertical and horizontal shooting, which will be great for people shooting portrait content. When you switch between photo and video, the monitoring layout changes, and it also remembers your settings from each individual mode. It takes about 1 second to turn the camera on into either the photo or video mode, and then when you switch from one mode to another, it takes under a second when going between both of them. This is incredibly quick, and in practice, it just feels instant to boot up and switch between them. You have the ability to use either shutter speed or angle, which I think is pretty essential in this type of camera nowadays. It has good connectivity such as Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, can be used as a UVC camera device, and has Frame.io integration via the USB-C. You can also connect your camera to Nikon's imaging cloud that we mentioned earlier, and this will even automatically update firmware when you're not using the camera. The ZR's media setup is a little bit different. It has a single CF Express Type-B and a micro SD card slot, but they are positioned here next to the battery on the bottom, which you normally see on much smaller cameras than this. Personally, I would have preferred a separate media slot, not only to make it easier to access, but also help with potential heat issues that could happen, as CF Express Type-B cards can get very hot. Type-B is obviously the main recording media that everyone's going to use, and microSD is really there for the lower data rate formats and photos. Nikon has a set of recommended media for the Z6 III, which should be a good place to start when grabbing media for the ZR, as they share so much recording format wise. Currently there is no redundant recording option, which I think would be good. You only have the option to record proxies while shooting RAW, but these are to the same card your RAW is recording to, not the microSD. Here are some rough runtimes of a 1TB card across some of the different formats. The ZR uses the EN EL15C battery, which is used across a bunch of other Nikon cameras. This is a 2280 mAh battery, and it slides into the bottom of the camera here. This door can easily be removed, and you can run the camera without the door on, which is good for using dummy batteries for external power sources. You can just use the USB-C on the side of the camera, which can be powered via 45-watt PD power supplies. Nikon has rated this camera to record for about an hour and a half before the battery runs out, which is a pretty good amount of time, but during our time shooting with the camera, the batteries actually seem to last a little bit longer than that, so I think they are being quite conservative with those numbers. If you have the camera powered continuously, it will roll for a maximum of 2 hours and 5 minutes. However, this is a weird software limitation. You can just hit record again and keep rolling, and this is also the case with the Z6 III. So it's probably a feature carried over from that, considering these cameras share so much. Hopefully this is something that they can remove with firmware. We've obviously focused more on video specs because that's what we do, but the ZR is a hybrid camera. But I think it is more aimed at motion acquisition rather than photography. When it comes to its photography specs, it's essentially a Z6 III inside, but with a few restrictions. It doesn't have a mechanical shutter, but that's not the end of the world given how fast the sensor readout is. But it does affect the flash sync speed, which tops out at 1/60th of a second versus the 1/200th that the Z6 III has. It also hasn't got a viewfinder, which for some might be important. It has solid burst mode recording and a comprehensive set of features for stills. It can also be used with on and off camera flashes using the multifunction shoot. I'm sure for video focus users that take photos secondary to video, this will be very usable and produce great looking images. The ZR shares a lot with the Z6 III as we've mentioned, but the addition of red colour science and the internal R3D RAW, 32-bit float audio recording, the unique video tools and menu system, the beautiful bright large 4-inch screen, and an arguably better set of buttons and ergonomics for video shooting do set the two cameras apart. The Z6 III is a touch more expensive and is certainly the more photography focused camera, especially with that lovely OLED EVF, mechanical shutter, and more traditional physical design. Honestly, I think these two cameras are for two very different users. The Nikon ZR is a real statement from Nikon. It's them showing that they are seriously going after a share of the video market. £2,199 including tax is an incredibly aggressive price for a camera of this spec and image quality. And really, Nikon needed to do something like this to try and position themselves more in the video market. What this camera offers for its price is very impressive. It's technically a very competent camera, can capture great looking images, allows you to use RED's excellent colour science and compressed RAW, and has solid autofocus and stabilisation. The ability to adapt to E-mount lenses is going to make it appealing to people invested into Sony's ecosystem, but wanting to dip their toe into Nikon and RED's new system. This is a great first step for Nikon using RED's technology in a Nikon camera, and personally, I can't wait to see what they have coming up next. I would love to see the Z8 sensor in a camera like this, as that sensor is fantastic. There is plenty that I want to see Nikon improve with this camera though, which we've mentioned throughout the video. But I think the biggest thing they need to focus on is improving video focus tools. But otherwise, the ZR is a fantastic entry point into their new Z Cinema line. If you are interested in grabbing one for yourself, I've put links in the description below. And if you want to come in and test one of these for yourself, we'll be getting demo stock into our UK and European showrooms as soon as possible. So you can get your hands on the camera yourself, rig it up, and check out some lenses with one of our knowledgeable technical consultants. If you want to book an appointment, drop demo@cep.com and email. I know this has been a long video and we've had to turn this around very quickly, so thank you so much for watching this long. Let us know if you have any other questions down in the comments below, and to stay up to date with our upcoming content, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and thank you so much for watching.